Welcome back to Ace of Clubs, guys. In today's match, we are having a revenge game after Frankie beat me in the last 3-hole match. So we're replaying the same 3 holes to see if I can beat him this time. Again, Frankie gets one shot off the tee and is playing from the reds, and I'm playing from the yellows. My tee shot typically sliced out to the right-hand side. This hole does slightly dogleg left to right, so it was pretty safe, down by the trees in the right-hand rough. Frankie started his aiming line down the left-hand side, knowing that his slice might push the ball in a similar direction to mine. He gets a much cleaner contact on his, gets a good bit of height on it, and it bounces and rolls a lot further down the fairway. So a really good tee shot from Frankie, putting himself in prime position on this hole.
Hit like a bit of a knockdown 9-iron here. I don't want to twat it too far, but they're still on the green, so I'll wait actually. You know the one of them where the ball's slightly below your feet? I just feel like I want to top it.
So as you can hear from me talking to cameraman Sammy, I was a little bit worried about this one coming out thin, so I tried to really make sure that I got underneath this with the 9-iron. 9-iron was probably a bit too strong of a club, but I'd rather be at the back of the green than the front of the green on this hole. I managed to make good contact with this one, hit it dead at the flag. The line was really good, but just a little bit long.
Oh, I needed a much softer bounce than that. The line looked really good.
So Frankie had this about 80 yards from the pin. He tried to get his 56-degree wedge there, but unfortunately he caught a little bit too much of the grass, and that just left him short. With a downhill slope before the green, it did still put him in a decent position.
So guys, 2 shots into the first hole. Frankie's a little bit short, and I went a little bit long. The hole was downhill, so I hit a 9-iron, and it just bounced and jumped to the back of the green. Frankie just caught a little bit of a duff, so his is a little bit before the green. So we're both a similar distance from the hole. 2 shots taken. We'll see who gets the win.
So for Frankie's third, he's aiming out to the left-hand side here. He's trying to land this ball just on the green and then trickle it down towards the hill. He didn't quite give this ball enough, and it just bounced probably a yard short of his aiming point.
Get on.
From the very back of the green, I took my 56-degree wedge, knowing that I didn't want this to go too fast as it was downhill and slightly sloping right to left as well. But I put myself in a decent position, gave myself a chance for a par putt, so hopefully I can hold that. Frankie knew his putt was left to right, but he didn't quite give this enough out to the left-hand side, and it still finished right at the hole, and probably a little bit too much pace on that one as well. So it left him with another tricky putt to try and rescue a bogey. And then I was trying to make my par putt here, had about 15 feet to try and roll this in. I got the pace right, but unfortunately didn't quite give the break enough. So tapped that in 4 or 5, that gave me a bogey on this hole, and then Frankie had a putt to try and draw the hole, which he now knew the read of, but unfortunately smashed it straight at the flag. Too much power on it, and then that meant that he was tapping in for a 6. But in fairness to Frankie, the last time we played this, the greens were a little bit slower. These are extremely quick today, and you can see on this putt as well, just gives it a little bit too much. So he really had to try and dial in the pace on his putting before this next hole. So we move on to a par 4. This one is pretty straight for the first 200 yards, and then it doglegs slightly to the left-hand side. I'm just aiming over the left bunkers here and trying to hit a fade out to the right-hand side. I was very worried here to see whether it actually got through the bunker or not, and it actually just managed to escape into the rough on the left-hand side of the fairway. Frankie hits a really good strike here. He was brilliant off the tee today with his driver. Aims the same point over that left bunker, knowing his fade's going to put it in the centre of the fairway, and he executed this to perfection. Left himself with a second shot to try and attack the green. So Frankie decided to go with his 6-iron, which isn't the most comfortable of club for him, and he's definitely a lot more confident with a 7-iron in his hand, but he decided to go to the 6 to try and make sure he had the distance to get to the green, and with that club not being quite as comfortable a swing, he didn't get enough of the ball, caught too much of the ground, and then that put him in the fairway, but only 30 yards further forward. So I'm now hitting out of the left rough, trying to make sure that I get all the way to the green, but anything short here I'm still fairly happy with. I'm just trying to make sure I don't go too far left with those trees coming into play if you pull anything to that left-hand side. Now, I absolutely thinned this one and it topped along the floor. I got very lucky that I hit the right line, but didn't put myself anywhere near close enough to the green because I didn't get underneath the ball at all. Frankie then hits his approach shot. He's aiming straight at the flag. He pulls it slightly to the left, and unfortunately that one landed in the bunker, and it's a tough out from there. He did a very good job here of trying to get underneath the ball, pop it up in the air, and hit it hard enough to make sure that he gets up and out, and he did a great job there on his first bunker shot of the round. And then I was chipping here to try and get as close to the hole as possible for tap-in par, but I knew that uphill I didn't want to leave this short, so I tried to accelerate through it quickly with my 60-degree and paced this really well. Just finished to the right-hand side of the flag and a little bit short, but I was pretty confident I'd make par from there. Very happy with that one. So Frankie's chipping out of the fringe again on these fast greens. He leaves this ball way too far past the hole, and unfortunately that was going to leave him another tricky putt to try and rescue a double bogey for his card. And then I was par putting here. This one was pretty straight. I just tried to make sure I got the pace right, committed to it, and knocked that right in the middle of the hole. So very happy to make a par there after the bogey on the last. And then that left Frankie with a shot for his 6. Again, these fast greens just got the better of him. And even though he barely touched this ball, with it being downhill, it still left him a few feet. And we gave him that for a 7 net 6. So that left him with 2 6s in a row. So he needed to definitely beat me on this hole to have any chance of catching up before we finish the 3-hole match. I took my gap wedge here. I was debating whether to go pitching wedge or gap wedge. I decided with the gap wedge. And then guess what? Gap wedge wasn't enough. Put it in the bunker.
Should have gone pitching wedge.
Frankie, playing off his red tees, took a 9-iron here and hits a lovely shot. He said he wasn't trying to attack the flag because it was just a bit too risky with that bunker. He went middle of the green and absolutely nailed the execution. I got down to my ball and was very happy. The ball didn't actually reach the bunker, so that gave me a much easier chip shot. Just bump it up this hill and then I should be on the green for 2. And even though it wasn't out the bunker, I still managed to duff it and not get anywhere near enough on the ball. So that then left me with my 3rd shot. This is a very uphill shot. Awkward stance. Just tried to make sure I popped it up in the air a little bit and try and finish as close to the hole as I can, knowing that it'd land quite soft from this uphill lie. And I was pretty happy from there. I knew that I'd cost myself a shot with that duff chip, but that should have been enough to secure the win, unless Frankie absolutely nails his putt here. So he's breaking this one right to left. He doesn't quite give it enough break. And again, those fast greens catch him out. So hits it, almost knocks my ball out of contention as well. I tap in for my bogey, and then Frankie has got his shot to try and rescue a par on this hole. But once again, these lightning greens get the better of him. It flies past the hole. Even though this hill looks like it's going to slow the ball down, the ball still flew past it. So then he had this knock-in for a bogey, which is a net par for him with his shot on every hole. So the revenge for me was complete. I managed to beat Frankie by 2 shots today. I scored 13 over the 3 holes and he shot 15. So that puts the series as a 1-1 draw so far. Follow along for part 3 and see who takes the win.